that we now have the Community Solar Act. And, those who, after I got tired of taking a beating, who picked up the mantle and really finished the job and got this passed, is just something we should all be proud of here in New Mexico. And it is an exciting time for us to have passed this bill and also have community solar projects that have been awarded this year across all three major utilities. It truly is an exciting time. We have a panel of today of 3 experts that I think cover all of the bases in the aspects of community solar and what it means to our state and how we got here. I think that having somebody from the solar industry, having somebody from the nonprofit sector, and certainly having somebody from the New Mexico legislature should put us in a position that we have everything that we need to know. So this webinar is intended for New Mexico residents. And what we hope is that you're going to be able to learn about the upcoming product that this state has and how your own household or your small business can benefit. It's also a great chance for municipalities, for nonprofits, for community serving organizations to learn how they can get involved and make sure their community members know all about this program. So, the things that have happened in informing and shaping what community solar is here in the state of New Mexico has been a little nebulous to some people and to some municipalities and to some businesses. But community solar presents us with an innovative approach to harnessing solar energy. Unlike traditional residential solar installations that are limited to individual homes, community solar projects operate on a larger scale and with a single offsite project capable of powering hundreds of homes or businesses. Having that offsite installation means that the solar panels and the infrastructure are centralized in a specific location rather than scattered across individual residential properties. This central site can be on private property, it can be on public land, it can be on big rooftops, anything that has a suitable area that's spacious, that can optimize solar energy generation and distribution to multiple homes and businesses that are within that community. The true power of community solar lies in the collaborative effort of pooling resources and sharing the electricity generated. In doing so, entire communities are going to be able to gain access to clean energy, enabling one single community solar project to make a significant positive impact on the environment and the local community by powering hundreds of homes with renewable energy. Places that probably, didn't really think they would have that opportunity prior to that. So how did we get this in New Mexico, and how is it going to work? Or I guess more to what I just said, how does this is going to work when you enroll in community solar? You're going to subscribe to a portion of that larger project, as you can see on the slide, and every month your subscription generates electricity that you'll be able to earn bill credits on your electric bill, and that amount of electricity will be shown as a portion of your solar project in the previous month. Since these rates are in kilowatt hours, as it says there, the amount that you save on your electric bill will vary from month to month, depending on how much electricity was generated that month from the sun. And this will, something we'll talk about as part of the dual billing process, and you'll be able to see that again on your bill. So now in New Mexico, we have several different things that we want to take a look at as far as what the Community Solar Act is going to accomplish for us. When we first took a look at it 10 years ago, one of the things that we had hoped was that low to middle income people, and at that time we were really focused on smaller projects in multifamily situations. But since things have been announced this last spring, those who were awarded some of the community solar awards will be able to open up soon to subscribers. The savings rates will vary from 10 to 30%, depending on your household income. As I mentioned, low to middle income carve-outs will be available, and the dual billing will be there in your monthly utility bills. Who's eligible? It's pretty wide open. There will be anchor tenants. That will be explained more from our panel, people that know a little bit more about it than I do. But small businesses, which is important to the Santa Fe Green Chamber of Commerce and New Mexico Sustainable Business. We want to be able to get the commercial aspect in there. Nonprofits, churches, the tribes have certainly been on our minds as we've been developing this sort of legislation. Schools, municipalities, anybody who can really house a central site that they can spread to all the different people that have an interest in community solar. I think that, as I mentioned before, we're very honored with the panels that have chosen and have said that they would like to participate with us today. We have, as I said, the nonprofits, we have the legislature, and we have a solar industry expert. And I'd like to introduce our panels and let them take over for me and answer a few questions. But first, let's talk about who they are. Christian Casillas is the Director of Policy Development and Research for the Coalition of Sustainable Communities, New Mexico. This is a nonprofit, nonpartisan membership organization representing and serving New Mexico cities and counties. CSCNM, that's a long acronym, engages in collaboration with its member governments and other stakeholders to develop equity-based solutions to climate and sustainability challenges. They have a deep understanding of both the Community Solar Act and the regulatory rules defining the community, and bill sponsors developing the legislation and negotiating compromises with various constituents. CSCNM worked in collaboration with partners to submit responses during the PRC rulemaking process, which we know is the vital key here, that helped establish the community solar program rules, as well as the development of project selection criteria. Importantly, CSCNM managed contract work for the PRC with several other partners to develop strategies for low-income participation in New Mexico's community solar program. They are currently working with the Community Solar Program Administrator, Incline, to help with education and outreach for low-income communities. Thanks for being here, Christian. Second, we have Steph Speirs. Steph is the co-founder and CEO of Solstice, which connects households and businesses to community solar farms and clean energy. Steph serves on the board of directors of the Sierra Club Foundation and Clean America for America, the advisory boards of the Yale Center for Environmental Law and Policy and the Environmental League of Massachusetts, and the Climate Council for Bloomberg's New Economy Forum. She previously deployed solar microgrids, lanterns, and home systems in India and Pakistan. Prior to renewables, she managed field operations on the Obama campaign and developed policy at the White House National Security Council. She was selected as EY, New England's Entrepreneur of the Year, C3E's Entrepreneur Award, Inc. Magazine's Female Founder 100, and L's U.S. Woman Entrepreneur of the Year. She holds degrees from Yale, Princeton, and MIT. Need to get you out west a little more, I think. And our third panelist, Representative Andrea Romero. Andrea is a daughter of northern New Mexico, a norteña. Her family goes back generations in El Norte. Andrea calls Santa Fe, Espanola, Chimayo, La Mesilla, and Nambe home, and it is where she was raised. After attending elementary, middle school, and high school in Santa Fe Public Schools, Andrea graduated from Stanford University with a degree in political science. She has dedicated herself to the growth of northern New Mexico's economic and environmental vitality through her small business and volunteer service to various organizations throughout the region. Currently, Andrea works in impact investing and as an entrepreneur in the probiotic space, with one patent issued on healthy probiotic eggs. And I might add, those are really large eggs. I've seen them. I love those ostriches. So I'm so glad to have you here today. So let's talk about community solar in New Mexico. I want to ask this question probably specifically for Andrea and Christian, and to give a little more context to where and how we've gotten to where we are today. So can you talk about the statewide efforts to get this program to happen in New Mexico? Who was involved and why it was a priority? Maybe start with Andrea.
Yeah, so this was a multi-year, multifaceted, many different folks who advocated at the legislative level, community level, and got together understanding that New Mexico was ready for a community solar program. But if in its first legislative iterations, it needed to go to a working group, which we worked through the pandemic on, which was amazing seeing all of these faces in our Zoom rooms for months and months to get the work right. So after that, we got back into session. And of course, we finally were able to get it past the finish line. So I can speak to the House perspective that there were a lot of interest, a lot of supporters, and we were thrilled to finally get it through its many hurdles, but certainly the start of what has bloomed and blossomed over the last year and several months of seeing things come to fruition. But with the Coalition of Sustainable Communities, New Mexico, I think galvanizing the support with many other developers, many other community organizations who were deeply involved, and legislators, my colleagues also involved, all of that effort brought it to where it is today.
Great. And it's, again, a great appreciation from those of us who started early on. And certainly, Christian, your organization was pivotal in getting it to where it is now and getting it passed. And I was thrilled to see that your organization was taking up the mantle. So do you want to talk a little bit more about how it happened and why it was a priority?
Sure. Yeah, just very, very briefly. So Beth Beloff, the founder of the coalition and a guiding force in the final passage of the bill. When she founded the organization, the Coalition of Sustainable Communities New Mexico, about 5 years ago, we base our priorities largely on the cities and county governments. And one of their priorities had been for the passage of community solar. And we really wanted to see an equity focus in the development of that bill. And so we worked hard with, as Andrea mentioned, a lot of other stakeholders in the process. And we ended up with the bill that at the time, I think, had the largest statewide carve out for low-income households. So with the initial phase of 200 megawatts of community solar that are in process right now, all of those projects, each of those projects, 30% of their energy must go to low-income households, which are defined as those making 80% area median income or lower, or low-income serving organizations. And so that we're just really pleased to see this finally beginning to roll out, and looking forward to better understand the benefits that will accrue to the low-income communities here in New Mexico.
Yeah, I think that's great, and the timing is terrific. You know, with the EPA's Thriving Communities and Justice 40 initiatives to reach those low to middle income. I mean, this is just another something that we can really roll out in a state such as ours that's so so much in need of this. So I think that with your experience at Solstice, Steph, what kind of opportunities are presented for working families, small businesses low-income households, those in particular, and why is community solar such a really terrific option as opposed to rooftop?
Yeah, great question, Glenn. And the promise of community solar is to serve the people who need solar savings the most: low-income Americans, Black and Brown Americans, communities of color. But that's not actually been the reality. When you look at the last decade of community solar projects built across the country, according to Wood Mackenzie, which is a major research institution in renewable energy, they say only 2% of the 5 gigawatts of community solar that's been built has actually gone to low-income customers. And community solar was built for the everyday American. There's 4 out of 5 Americans that cannot put solar on their own rooftop because they don't own the roof. They're a renter or condo owner, or there's a tree covering their roof, or it's facing the wrong way, or it's made out of the wrong materials, or they don't have the right credit score to get financing, or they don't have the money to pay up front for rooftop solar. So community solar is supposed to serve those 4 out of 5 Americans that can't get rooftop. And yet it's still not reaching its promise. And that's because for a long time, developers and financiers of community solar projects have said, we need the off-takers, the subscribers for our projects, to be the least risky population. So we're going to put FICO score requirements on the projects. We're going to create long-term 20-year contracts for community solar. We're going to have a cancellation fee on the product. And so those things really do exclude the millions of Americans, particularly the 60% of us that live paycheck to paycheck across the country. So that is why it's so important that the legislation that folks like Representative Romero put into place and Christian worked on is so important, because it's trying to protect the low-income consumer, trying to give them an even playing field to take advantage of the clean energy transition. We know that climate action and clean energy is going to be the source of the greatest economic growth in the next 10 years for this country. And we're currently excluding so many people from it. So we have to make the community solar product accessible. It means you have to have meaningful discounts go to customers. It has to be easy for them to sign up and easy to get educated on the opportunity. We can't expect people to just know about community solar. It can be complicated and confusing and new, and it seems like a scam because you don't see it. But you're getting guaranteed savings, don't worry. So we need trustworthy companies that are approved by the government or regulators to be giving people good information about how to sign up and what that means for their utility bill. We need trust to come into this program, and we need the people, the messengers that are distributing the education, to be trustworthy and to actually have low-income interests in their heart. I have a lot of other policy things that we could do, but I'll stop there.
Well, that's a great segue into the next question, and also the trust issue is something I really want to talk about as we move forward. But when you talk about the numbers of adoption of community solar, which is a world that I live in, looking at those things, and again, certainly with the EPA's Thriving Communities stuff that's happening, how do you reach those people? And so now that, and I think this question can be for all three of you, but now that the program is here, how can organizations such as municipalities and tribal entities and nonprofits get involved to make sure that their communities are seeing some benefit for this? And maybe I'll start with you, Christian. And since you, as a nonprofit in that world, what can be done?
Yeah, thank you, Glenn. And I'll leave it up to Steph to talk a little bit about the role that some of these larger organizations can play as something called anchor tenants in the subscription process. One thing around the trust issue is really getting the word out ahead of time so that the households are aware that this is a statewide program, that it's supported by the the local governments, and most importantly, the community-based organizations that they might know and trust. And there's a number of challenges. As Steph mentioned, the too good to be true. Somebody shows up to your door and says, sign here, and you'll be receiving discounts on your bill. And then especially for low income households. So of the 200 megawatts is the initial capacity for this program. And of that, the bids were awarded to 45 different bid winners. So there will be 45 projects built across the 3 investor-owned utility service areas, 29 programs in P&M service territory, I think 10 in El Paso Electric, or no, 6 in El Paso Electric, and 10 in Excel or SPS territory. And of those projects that were awarded, they committed to serving over 50% of the constituents of the subscribers will be low income and low income serving organizations. We expect to see 20 to 30% discounts on the solar bill credit requirements. And so these pieces of the potential benefits, we really want to make sure that the households, the potential subscribers, are well informed. One piece
Right.
that is part of one piece that's part of the consumer protection side of things is something called a uniform disclosure form. And what that is, it's a required every single organization that's going to subscribe a household has to provide this information to the household before they sign any contract. The uniform disclosure will identify information in both English and Spanish. It will describe the future costs and benefits of the subscriptions, key contract terms such as cancellation fees or no cancellation fees, and other relevant information. So everybody should expect to see that. And at the same time, it's going to be a lot of confusing of somebody coming to the door presenting a lot of information. And so one role that we're playing, our organization is playing, is really making sure that the trusted organization partners, the CBOs, governments, tribal organizations, have some sort of training, have all of their questions asked so that they can be reliable resources of information for their constituencies. And I can put it in the chat, but we've got we'll be offering webinars to all community-based organizations and local governments and tribal organizations about the basics of community solar. And that will include opportunities for exploring any sort of questions, concerns they might have, so that they can be well informed when they begin receiving questions and concerns or curiosities when people begin receiving more information from the subscriber organizations. And I'll pause there.
Okay. Yeah, I think outreach and education is going to be key to this. And Andrea, maybe you can talk a little bit about, from a legislative standpoint, and in reaching, in particular, maybe tribal entities and some of the municipalities, and explain to them how they might be able to, make sure that their constituencies benefit.
Yeah, it's so critical that both from the consumer end and from those who are seeking to develop solar around the state know which channel to go through. So even for me as a legislator, in order to get good information, I've been Googling around on the internet, and thankfully our state has a great platform in which is keeping everybody up to date right now, in order to just get information when are consumers ready to plug in. And for tribal entities, as far as the legislation and what we would still need to work through are intergovernmental agreements in order to be able to build capacity. In our community, we also have a lot of co-ops, in which case those folks can't access that at this moment. And I think it's really important to make sure that folks know where the nuances are, but then with the general interest of, is my neighborhood getting involved to find that sort of interest? So as from a legislative perspective, and certainly from a public policy perspective, we're going to want to make sure that that information is available. And as soon as a neighborhood block or perhaps a new, development or renovation is happening in a certain area with the connectivity to solar energy, that goes live, and at least the minimum 10 participants, but maximum X amount of participants know that they can register. And so today, even on the website, I can't sign up just right now in order to plug in. However, that's coming, and for the first sort of year before we get to the real broader build out for now, what we'll call the pilot. I don't know how you guys are phrasing it, but for this first year is working at those kinks, but ensuring too that consumers feel protected, those that are getting involved have a streamlined process to feel good about it, and for us to get that feedback loop in order to improve anything that we must legislatively, but certainly how it is that we can make sure that the program is successful, because it's just such a massive opportunity for our communities to connect.
Yeah, it really is. And that again, getting back to that kind of outreach, and hopefully we are going to have a fast learning curve when it comes to getting to this news to folks in terms of the same things, and getting making sure that people in these communities and nonprofits know that how they can help their communities. Steph, maybe you can talk to something that Christian alluded to, which are anchor programs and some of the partnership programs that Solstice is going to be able to help us put into place.
Yeah, that the anchor program specifically that is designed in New Mexico is so exciting and different from the rest of the country. I talked about how only 2% of community solar so far has gone to low-income households. Most of the capacity for community solar across the country have gone to commercial entities. But the anchor program in New Mexico is different. So anchors can be municipalities and nonprofits, and they get to sign up their own large facilities to the community solar program. And that means they're going to get 10% or more on their electricity costs saved. And they don't have to go through the hassle or investment of on-site solar, which can be complicated for a lot of nonprofit or municipalities. So by signing up as an anchor, nonprofits and municipalities will save money, they're going to reduce their CO2 emissions locally, and they're going to improve the health of their community. And then Solstice, I was a community organizer, and I grew up in a low-income household. So I understand how little bandwidth people have really at the end of the day, after working 3 jobs like my single mom did, to review a lot of complicated legislation or proceedings or regulations. And so Solstice actually does partner with nonprofits and municipalities to help their community sign up for community solar easily. We share our revenues with local community partnerships that we engage, and we're engaging those organizations to just educate their network. And we've given back $200,000 to local community organizations that we've partnered with, who go on to sign up their own residents or their own communities for these programs in 7 states across the country. So it's about finding that local empowered champion who wants to sign up their community, empowering them and giving them resources and the materials so that they can share the education in the most transparent way possible.
Well, good. I mean, I mentioned an embarrassment of riches before in terms of renewable energy potential. We also have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to champions here in New Mexico. So I think we're going to be okay on that front. And it's also heartening to hear that we, New Mexico, are different in the way we are using an anchor program system. I think that that's going to be huge for not only the LMI people, but also our commercial folks. So we've talked about some of the trust issues, and unfortunately, again, those of us involved with renewable energy on whatever level that is have been a little bit chagrined recently with some of the things that have happened that maybe have added to a slight history of mistrust in the solar market in New Mexico. And I think maybe this is a perfect legislative question for Andrea, which is how do we combat that mistrust? I mean, we have the door-to-door part has been mentioned a little bit, and we need to do some things. Going back to from some of the door-to-door sort of sketchy lease options that happened a few years ago, but just recently there's been that rearing of the mistrust head. So what would you suggest we do, Representative Andrea Romero?
Well, I think this is a bigger picture issue too, when we talk about everybody kind of figuring out post-COVID, getting back into community, and where are the ways in which we need to continue to help and learn from each other. And so part of that is for us to be out there listening to folks. And I appreciate just even having forums like this where over 50 people are attending, to get some good information about what's going on, to share with neighbors, what are the right websites to go to. I always get for me, I see ads on Instagram and LinkedIn and other things that are targeting me because I'm interested in solar, in which case, which are legitimate and which are those that are more predatory. And I think sharing that information is great because we can get the AG involved, we can get legislation involved, we can, make sure that consumers feel protected in the process. And so part of that building trust is who are the legitimate, folks that are already in the anchor program, and how is it going, and making sure that folks feel empowered to discuss that. So I'll put myself first out there saying, like, if you have an issue or you don't know, we will find an answer for you as to whether or not something's legitimate, as to whether or not that ad on Instagram was for real, or why are they asking you for certain information. So those are really important tidbits for us to really understand. And I still get door-to-door solicitors at my door as well. They'll leave their pamphlets and things. So again, I think speaking through what is legit and what is, sort of potentially a problem, we really need to be cognizant of, but we can't, know that for sure until we actually start socializing all of this information and making sure that we have that platform that folks understand that, okay, we can talk to each other about what works and what doesn't.
That's terrific. And Christian, thank you. You put that link for education and consumer protection in the chat. And also we have a comment from a colleague, Jill Clyburn, who is a TA advisor to the National Solar Partnership, and she can provide more information. And I don't know if you want to put some of that information in the chat as well, Jill. And I might add, if you do have questions now or at any point, you can put them in the Q&A and we'll hold those till the end. So again, unfortunately, transparency and building trust in this market is something we have to deal with. And so I have a question maybe that would best be directed to Steph, and that is, what are some of the things that customers should expect during this enrollment process, or that community leaders and organizations that we need to be able to explain to people as we are trying to help grow this subscription base in New Mexico?
Yeah, great question. So some of the things haven't been entirely clear to consumers yet. I think first is that the billing for community solar projects in New Mexico are going to be on a dual bill system. In some states across the country, you have the utility consolidating the community solar credits, and you have a utility consolidated bill, but we don't have that yet in New Mexico. And so people who are enrolling are going to be required to put down a payment method to get invoiced for their solar credits. Now, just to be clear, you're still going to get guaranteed discounts on your electricity bill, and the credits are going to be you paying for the solar that's produced by your share, and then you're going to get a 10% plus discount on the credits that you're seeing. So if you're going to ordinarily pay your utility $1 for electricity, with community solar, you'd be paying 90 cents, but you'd be directing that payment towards the solar company that's building community solar as opposed to the utility. So that's an important distinction that people need to really understand, because sometimes people say, wait, there's guaranteed savings. Why are you asking me for my payment method? But you should only ever pay less for community solar than for regular conventional power. And that's an important fact that people should know. Second thing folks should know when enrolling is that there's certain verification requirements required for low-income households. That if you're low income, that can potentially mean you've got higher savings, depending on which developer or project you're going with. But that might require you to prove, unfortunately, that you're low income, verify it through an annual income statement or a pay stub, or a proof of participation in another low-income program of public assistance like SNAP or LIHEAP. So generally speaking, in low-income projects, you do have to provide verification. Notably, Solstice does try to advocate against this. We don't think it's fair to make people prove that they're poor, because that puts a burden on them, but that is the state of the world, unfortunately, with a lot of these low-income programs across the country. And the third thing to know is about timeline when you're enrolling. So there's going to be a gap between when these solar projects are announced and when you as a customer start seeing the credits. Because the way solar financing works is you have to enroll subscribers, and then you're allowed to build your project, and then it has to get interconnected to the grid. And then once it's electrified, meaning the project turns on, that's when you start seeing the credits. So there's a gap between when you're signing up and when you see the credits, and that's not always well explained to customers. So, we estimate that people will start to see their savings around late 2024. And it's important, though, to get on the wait list as soon as possible, so you're first in the queue to get the savings. And also just be aware that the reason why you're signing up before the project is built, because that's how financing in solar happens, is the financing only flows after people sign up. So you can know that you're signing up means that this project will get built. You are actually helping the project get built, and it wouldn't have gotten built otherwise without a sign up. So those are some important facts to know. And then there are different, last thing to know when enrolling. There are different terms across different companies. So you want to make sure that you're getting the best deal. And generally the terms and contracts are different across the savings rate. So make sure that you're getting the maximum saving rate possible with the project you're signing up, because developers do get to determine what the savings rate is for their customers. The term length of the contract, sometimes it's no contract term length. Sometimes we've seen 20-year contract term length. So that's something to pay attention to. Are there cancellation fees? We advocate at Solstice very heavily to make sure there are no cancellation fees, because that's not customer friendly. But some projects and developers are going to put a cancellation fee and fine print on your contract. So please look out for that. And lastly, is there a FICO credit check? At Solstice, we happen to believe that FICO is a modern form of redlining, because it disproportionately excludes the most vulnerable low-income population, and it measures things like your mortgage and your credit card history, but it doesn't measure things that low-income customers pay, like rental bills, cell phone bills, utility bills. So, it is a discriminatory standard, and some developers use it to qualify customers for their community solar projects. So just be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, I think that there is going to be a continuum of information and education coming our way, and especially when you talk about making sure that you're getting the proper savings and discount that you signed up for. And we do have a couple of questions in the Q&A. One from Barbara, which is explain how grid backup will work in our community solar projects, given some of the challenges of keeping the grid operating reliably as generation is shifted from fossil fuels to renewables with backup and other technologies. So I'll open that up to anybody who can answer that. And Christian has an answer for that.
And before
you get to go first.
Okay, great. And before I jump into that, can I just add one addition onto what Steph shared?
Sure.
Regarding the transparency piece of for consumers to know what the terms are of the contracts, what the relevant savings are. That's a really important piece. And the Coalition of Sustainable Communities in New Mexico, we're preparing right now a survey that will go out to the project developers, totally voluntary. And we're asking them to share with us their anticipated contract terms. And then we're going to put together a comparison table that we'll publish on our website. And this has been done in other markets in Illinois and New Jersey. Again, it's voluntary, but there, if some organizations are publishing, it's a source of free advertising for them. And it allows the consumers to be able to know what they should expect and provide some amount of trust to those organizations that are willing to share and disclose their information. So that's something that we hope to have up on our website in the next month or two, and then we'll update it as the program unfolds. As far as backup energy storage, the community solar program, none of the projects will have paired storage. So while that is extremely important thing in the modernization of our grid and the greater integration of renewables, just due to right now various policies around pricing and cost, all of the programs, all of the 200 megawatts that are being integrated will not have storage.
Great. And Steph, did you have
Well, just one thing that's really exciting about the IRA Solar for All program, that the application of which got extended to mid-October, and states and tribal areas and municipalities are eligible to apply, is that it is giving funding specifically for storage. And so we could see that changing with more federal funding for storage, because storage is so expensive, and like Christian said, is not a possibility right now, but could be down the line. And that's really the only thing that will help with the grid backup.
Okay. Here's maybe a more practical question for homeowners. Can you join a community solar program and then later put solar panels on your property as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, you could always cancel your subscription, and when your rooftop solar system is installed.
That would make sense. This is probably for Steph. We have the community solar rule does not establish an anchor program explicitly for nonprofits or special discounts as an anchor program. Can you clarify this program that you're referring to, and if it's a special offer or partnership?
I'm not sure exactly. I think this person is looking at the Community Solar Act versus the program that the state administrator Incline and the PRC has designed, and the projects in the program has this carve out specifically for that. The state program that PRC and Incline design has a carve out for anchor portions to go to municipalities and nonprofits specifically. But every project's going to be different. And Christian, do you have any elaboration?
Yeah. So the statute doesn't provide any criteria for what I don't believe for so the anchor tenants can be up to 40% of the total power for the project. And then the criteria, as you said, there isn't like there's not a program specifically for nonprofits. There's certain criteria that an anchor tenant must meet, which includes nonprofits and municipalities, and I think maybe schools. Yeah, actually, I'm not sure if I muddied the water or helped there.
I think it's pretty clear. And again, I think as we move forward, these options and, you know, the what ifs and how can I do this, and have we ever been able to do it with a school or whomever? I know early on, a lot of subscription partners were looking at universities and hospitals and things like that looked like they could be good anchors. It looks like we have one question that may or may not be a community solar question, especially with the EPA coming out with their Solar for All programs. But, you know, are there, you know, why community solar participants receive a mere 10 to 30% in savings? Are there no options for 100% savings and having an even return based on the amount of solar gathered on their roofs? And again, I think Solar for All is the only thing I can think of that would achieve that for anybody who wants basically a free solar system on their home. But I will acquiesce to any other options or any other ideas or answers that the panel may have.
I would love if we could pass on even more savings to low-income customers. I'm sure Representative Romero and Christian would feel similarly. But it's maybe helpful to know that the savings are determined based on program designs, incentives, and developer costs, right? Like if you're looking at a typical 3 megawatt project costs about $5 million to build, the developer who's building the project is going out and putting up that upfront cost of building that $5 million project. And then they're giving away free electricity savings to customers. So I think we would all want that savings to even be higher, but it's just the balancing of those market conditions. I don't know if the representative or Christian have other thoughts.
All I would say is that that's something that I think is really important to the success of this program, as to how many more, how is it that we can expand something that's working, in particular, serving the community for those that are disadvantaged and first accessing solar, right? That's the primary goal of this for those that can't afford to put rooftop on their homes, but certainly how to subsidize greater to create that access so that we can have clean energy for all. So we'll be continuing to look at the success of this program as we evaluate across the state various industries that are looking at, how do we continue to increase the pie? And so for us, it's really critical that we're hitting the high points. If we can extend that to 30, 50, 100% for certain subscribers, we certainly want to do that. So that's where my ear is to the ground on how we're evaluating the success of this program as well.
Okay, I think maybe we have time for another couple of questions. This one should be shorter because it's basically the flip side of the question that Ross asked earlier. And Luis wants to know, if you already have an existing rooftop solar and you're a customer, can you then subscribe to community solar? Seems like a Christian question to me.
Yeah, the motivation to subscribe to community solar would be to reduce your electricity bill. And so if you might have a case where you installed your rooftop solar system, and then your demand rose over time. Maybe you electrified some of your gas appliances, or you have an
Or
electric
Teslas.
vehicle. Yeah. And your demand is higher. You could subscribe to community solar to offset that portion of the demand that's still on your utility bill and isn't offset by your rooftop system.
I think that adequately answers it. Anything to add with the rest of the panelists? Okay. And here's an easy one, probably I could answer it, but I'll throw this out to the panel. It's a question from Victor, and he wants to know if he can obtain electricity directly from the installation and rather than going through the grid and a utility. I think I had friends in college that did that with cable, but I'm pretty sure that wasn't legal.
So the systems, the bid winners for this project, they range in size from, I think the smallest might be around 2 megawatts up to 5 megawatts. 5 megawatt solar system is going to be about the size of 30 football fields. So these are large installations that are going to be sited where land is cheaper, and so and the output from them gets fed into the distribution grid. So there aren't going to be opportunities, and that's the way any community solar project will typically work, is that it gets fed into the distribution system directly, and so it's not something that you would be offsetting your household level demand. That would need to be installed behind your electricity meter, and these systems are typically installed on the other side of the electricity meter.
I think that is it for the questions. I don't know if the panelists have anything to add before we move to a call for action from our registrants.
I would just call for action to continue the learning. I learn a lot when we get together like this as well. So for the Green Chamber and everybody here, thank you for providing your expertise. I learned more, and hopefully we can continue the effort so that anyone who wants community solar can have it.
Great, and I want to thank everybody on the panel and certainly the attendees who took some time out today. After this webinar is over, you're going to receive a form where you can put your name if you have some interest. This will go into an interest list, and we'll get some more information to you about Solstice's upcoming community solar opportunities and how you can get more involved in community-wide engagement. So make sure you get on that wait list soon, because even though there's some delays that are happening, they're going to fill up quickly because 200 megawatts goes by fast. So be on the lookout for that form, and it will likely be coming from the Santa Fe Green Chamber. And if we didn't get to any of your questions, I am going to put my email in the chat, and you can send those to me. And we'll get them answered by our astute panelists. And again, I want to thank the panelists for being here. And hopefully we can do this again.
Thanks,
Thank you
Glenn.
so much, Glenn.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Glenn. Thanks, everybody.